Well, hi everyone, and welcome back to the Ascension Playground. This is your friend Ursi. It's just the dawn of 2026, and it's January. We're moving towards so many amazing celestial happenings on the calendar. So, as many of you know, I'm pretty excited about the Lunar New Year, which is the 17th of February. But on the 20th of February, 2026, we're looking at that 0 degrees Aries point magnified by 100-fold. And this is because Saturn and Neptune join that 0 degrees Aries point. And as I've mentioned before, Pegasus constellation, the beautiful star named Shiat, is at the 0 degrees Aries point. Well, actually, it's working with Herb and Shiat. It's in the two stars of Pegasus. So here's my thought as I was waking up this morning. I love doing watercolor, so I was working with a beautiful red. It's a cold quinacridone red that I just kept feeling the sense of the blood, and blood being the source of life, blood carrying our ancestral DNA. But I went back to the story of the beautiful winged horse, Pegasus, and its story and history as we are in this age of Pegasus. So for many, I know we're thinking, okay, yes, one clock is saying we are moving from the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius. That is true on one particular clock. And when I say clock, I mean a dial for time. But those who have perhaps studied or dipped into astrology long enough, you know that there's usually a couple of clocks happening and ticking at the same time. The work of Bernadette Brady talks about Kairos time, where you have these broader cycles of basically events that will happen in each of our lives, tied to either Saturn returns, Chiron returns, and other very specific clocks. So we have the mundane, the wheel of time, Kairos time. But when we talk about the age and who holds the age for humanity and how it relates to us in this special portal of time, I'm being called to talk more about this age of Pegasus. And so when you hold the age, it's like that story and the mythos and the energetic do play a key role in the energetics of the collective of humanity. So for those who are looking at the Aquarian age, yes, the ruler is Uranus. So suddenness, electricity, AI, that's all very important. But the sign of Aquarius is the water bearer, right? And it holds the 11th house of associations, networks, the future, and dreams. And so when I think of Pegasus, I thought, okay, let's do a compare and contrast. Um, Age of Aquarius, age of Pegasus, to feel into, is it one? Is it both? Are they different clocks and wheels to consider? So I think as humanity is moving more into this idea of quantum, of moving from 3D into 4 and 5D and beyond, to merge our human selves, this human lifetime, more closely with our higher selves, this merging of self with higher self, creating much more of an avatar. So I'm going to call in my avatar self, and let's just briefly talk and tune into this potential dial or clock age of Pegasus. Let's see how that story plays into what we're seeing happening now. I mean, 2026 and 2027 are rather auspicious years. So let's see. So let's start at the beginning again. When you look at Greek mythology, Pegasus, this beautiful white winged horse, was born from Medusa. So just sitting with this idea that the mother of this beautiful horse is Medusa, the most vilified um, monster of the feminine. And knowing her story, how did she get to become this serpent headed female that would turn anyone to stone just by looking at her? Well, it's good to remember that Medusa was human, all right? So being human and then the gods playing tricks with one another. So the father of Pegasus is none other than Neptune. Now, Neptune is god of the sea, and he's actually god of the horses. So horses, the waves that we see crashing into the surf, are said to be the horses of Neptune, Neptune riding with a chariot of horses. This is why the constellation of Pegasus, you only see half the horse. You don't see all of the body. And that's a very interesting distinguishing that his father, Pegasus, is a he, is the king of the ocean. All right, so I'm going to pause there for a moment and go back. So Neptune and Saturn will be at the 0 degrees Aries point. All right. So Neptune is Pegasus's father. And here we have Pegasus constellation at that 0 degrees Aries point coming in late February, right? The 20th. And we're starting that Lunar New Year of the fire horse on the 17th. So the energy is moving. So let's go back. Neptune fathered Pegasus. But now, guess what? Who is the father in mythology of Neptune? It's none other than Saturn. Saturn, Chronos, time, right? So Saturn, his story is basically he was told one of your children would usurp you. And so every time his wife had a child, he would swallow the children. All right. And I'm going to check my notes. Some of the children that he swallowed, Saturn, are Neptune, Jupiter, Pluto, and he also has siblings to Ceres and Vesta. So interesting to note. Well, the mother of Neptune basically took Jupiter, hid him away. And so this is why Jupiter was suckled by the she-goat or Capella, the fixed star in the heavens in the constellation of Auriga. All right, so let's get back to that 0 degrees Aries point. You have the father, Chronos, time and structure, with his son, Neptune, king of the ocean, and then the offspring of Neptune, Pegasus. So we have 3 ancestral lines here, grandfather, father, and son, Saturn, Neptune, Pegasus, all at that 0 degrees Aries point. All right. So let's think about this thread of the age of Pegasus a little bit more. I told you that Medusa, fully human, turned into the Gorgon Medusa by Athena because she was one of Athena's virgin temple priestesses. And Neptune seduced, raped her as an ocean wave. This is why when Medusa was beheaded by Perseus, right? Perseus is flying around with, he borrowed Mercury's sandals, but he also borrowed from Athena her blade and her helmet. So interesting, like who helped you behead Medusa? You have the gods at play on humanity. So again, let's see the parallels of the quantum energetics playing with this petri dish of Earth that we call 3D right now. Okay, let me gather my thoughts. So when we think of half human, half celestial or divine, we do have this age of Pisces where the Christ, that human and the Mother Mary story. And this is the marker for, choose love, love thy neighbor as thyself message. So as we enter into this new age, we're wondering, what will that message be? Again, I'm looking at this age of Pegasus. So Pegasus, this hybrid, half bloodline of human with the god Neptune. Again, they're all meeting at this 0 degrees. This, for me, a new dial of time, a new clock is going to be born, this quantum new being. Do you see how this kind of sits and fits in well? I mean, the age of Aquarius, sure, that can be in the backdrop, but I think what's happening in 2026, Pegasus is coming forward. Now, the horse typically represents freedom and the untamed bestial nature, right? So when you start thinking and looking more at the story, Pegasus is connected to what's called the 9 muses. So we think inspiration, in spirit, more the refined nature of the 9 muses work with Pegasus. So the story there is this idea of the birth of spring came because the muses were singing and creating havoc on Mount Helicon. And there was so much inspiration happening that I believe it was perhaps Zeus. Yeah, Zeus ordered um, Athena to go fix the problem. There's just too much rumbling happening. So Athena tames Pegasus and sends the winged horse to work with the muses. And so, and believe me, I'm just pulling this thread. This is why anytime, Pegasus lands in, stomps his hoof, and water or springs, well springs of inspiration come forth. So anytime the stomping of a hoof, think of it as a metaphor for our current time, happens, the rumblings of earth, sudden warmth, springs of water, flooding. This is again connection to his father Neptune. And the other note I wrote was this connection to the neck area. So when Medusa's head was slain by a metal sword, right? So what is being cut? What is no longer, let's say, needed? We don't need to have this gorgon in our world anymore. So the transformation. So imagine Medusa, human, Vestal priestess, then turned into an unsightly gorgon with snake heads, and then from her death, transforming through her blood and giving birth to this beautiful horse. Now, biblically, I can't remember where it is, but in Revelation, I believe there's this marker for when the coming of the white horse. This is a marker for the turn of the ages. Okay, so that white horse, I think in earlier days, it was the coming of Christ, the second coming would be seen on this winged horse. If this is true, metaphorically and allegorically, I would think that this idea of the Piscean age, the archetype of Jesus, Christ, riding on the white horse, this age of Pegasus, it's a marker of our time. Anyway, there's this archetype of beauty from tragedy. Beauty, we could even look at Medusa, her beauty from the tragedy of being turned into a gorgon and then slain, and then her story being forgotten. We're so enchanted by her offspring, we forget, oh, the father is Neptune. And I always wonder, how come he didn't get a bad rap or how come he didn't get vilified or chastened or brought to justice for basically seducing and raping Athena's temple priestess? That's part of our human collective story, right? And it's more about this was a time of the male archetype held in a different place than the feminine. And so this trampling on the feminine, I think now the winged horse is saying, you know, we're moving into a new time. Here's my lineage. Okay. There was also something else born when Pegasus sprung. I've heard two stories. A sword came with Pegasus, and I also read that there was a giant named Chrysaor. But we only seem to focus on Pegasus because that's the pretty one, right? Everyone loves horses. So let me wrap up and just say, I do sense and feel with all the tom-toms going on, all the astrology, all the speakers, that this new age, if we want to call it the age of Pegasus, um, it demands a different way of seeing ourselves. And so those of you who have studied human design, you know that we ask the mind to take a seat in the back. Who's driving our decision making is our inner authority, knowing our type, our strategies for making decisions. It's not with the head, okay? So if you want to call upon this beautiful winged horse, let's say it's Pegasus who's guiding us into this new age and then moving us into the age eventually of Aquarius. You know, so holding this idea that Saturn and Neptune with Pegasus are sitting at that 0 degrees Aries point. I kind of knew immediately about a year and a half ago when I saw this lineup astrologically that it was a marker for a new time to come online, the resetting. So that's all I have for you today. If you want to engage with your expansion, Jupiter, and consider co-creating, right? And you want more support creating, call on Pegasus. And also in the Ascension Playground, I'm starting to do a step-by-step how to create your own star Merkaba, calling in your natal star families to support you as we greet this dawn of the new age. Take care, everybody, and I'll see you again on the playground at another time. Bye for now.